Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar on the future of tech skills. So my name is Jenna, and I am here today on behalf of TechTalent. So TechTalent is an ed tech business with a focus on creating a more diverse and inclusive tech sector that is dedicated to helping professionals and organisations stay up to date on the latest tech skills. So today's topic for today's webinar is a very important and timely one. As I'm sure we all know, the tech industry is constantly evolving. So staying up to date on those latest skills is essential for professionals and organisations that are looking to stay competitive. According to industry research, there is currently a high demand for tech skills across various sectors. So understanding what skills are going to be the most in the future can really help professionals and organisations plan their training and career development. During the webinar today, we are going to take a look at the current tech skills landscape and look at how that's evolved over recent years. We'll also take a look at the predictions for the future of tech skills and what that means for professionals and organisations. We'll also be discussing the implications of those trends and provide some strategies for staying ahead within the tech industry. So we are delighted to be joined today by our esteemed guest speaker and tech thought leader, Jennifer Stirrer. Now, Jennifer is an internationally recognised data strategist, AI expert and speaker, and has also been named as one of the top 50 global data visionaries and one of the top data scientists to follow on Twitter, as well as being one of the most influential top 50 women in technology worldwide. We are also joined by Sam Board. Sam is the Director of Training here at TechTalent, who comes armed with more than 20 years of experience in the training and development of individuals and organisations. And last but certainly not least, we also have Pawan Mandir, who is one of our resident technical trainers here at TechTalent. So in the webinar today, then, we are going to be covering several topics, including the overview of the current tech skills landscape, predictions for the future of tech skills, and also implications for professionals and organisations. And we'll take a look at some strategies for staying ahead. Throughout all of this, throughout the whole presentation, we will also be highlighting the importance of diversity and inclusion within the tech industry, as we really believe that everyone should have the access to the opportunities and resources that they need to succeed in the tech industry, regardless of their background or identity. So whether you are a seasoned tech professional that is looking to stay current in your field, or whether you are just starting out in tech and you want to know what skills will be the most in demand in the future, this webinar is definitely for you. We have assembled a panel of experts who will be sharing their insights and predictions on the future of tech skills, and also offer some strategies for staying current and preparing for the current coming changes. So sit back, relax, and get ready to learn about the exciting future of tech skills. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I'll now hand you over to Sam Board, who is TechTalent's Director of Training.
Thank you, Jenna. Can everyone hear me okay? Hello? Yep, you can. Sorry, I'm having a few internet issues. Typical that they suddenly just start as we're starting the webinar. Hopefully, I'm back properly in the room. So as Jenna said, I'm Sam Board, Director of Training here at TechTalent. I'm really thrilled to be here today. So as Jenna said, I've got 20 years experience in technology. So ever since I left university, I've had a job in technology, working with telecoms equipment, programming chips, programming software, doing a lot of engineering for the scientific industry, and also moved into training and specializing a lot into cybersecurity training as well. But generally, always been interested in the current state of the tech skills landscape. And obviously, as Director of Training, it's really critical that we stay aligned with all the top skills that are in demand, you know, what the companies out there are looking for and what we need to deliver for them. So what are the top skills that are currently in demand? And I think probably why Jennifer is also on the call, I think data has become probably one of the biggest things now in demand. I think you've probably heard the terms of we're currently living in the data age. And I think we've had this exponential growth in data. We've all heard about companies like Facebook and Google who, they make a huge amount of their profits based around this data. So this sort of ability to analyze data, visualize data, helps companies really identify opportunities for growth, increase efficiency, optimize their operations. So if they're not using their data, they're going to be left behind with the competition. The importance, obviously, to be able to communicate these insights through visualizations and how we use it and how we can work with our partners is becoming increasingly more important as well. So I think data science is one of those growing things, and I think that leads into another high demand area of machine learning and artificial intelligence. And often these two things will go hand in hand. Now, I'm going to bow to Jennifer's knowledge on machine learning and AI. But I think there's some really interesting things happening in this space, particularly ChatGPT. I imagine you'll probably mention ChatGPT. I think it's one of the flavors of the month with tech, but I think it's really interesting how Microsoft have invested in OpenAI. I think $10 billion recently. And a lot of people are predicting this is going to help them become the next Google. So Bing will become the next Google. You've heard it here first, perhaps. Whether that happens or not, we'll see. But I think this growth in AI is going to revolutionize how we start using our search engines. Cloud computing, I think, is another big skill we're seeing huge amounts of demand and growth for. There's so many benefits from cloud computing. I think traditionally, if I wanted to set up some web system, I'd have to buy a computer and I'd use a small amount of its capacity. And then if my website got popular, suddenly that computer wouldn't be able to handle all the traffic. So by allowing someone else to manage our computing for us, we can have easily scalable systems that can grow and shrink based on the demand that our systems are receiving. Also, it allows us to do various other things like the data protection and the security architecture can be also managed by the experts at the cloud providers, because there's huge amounts of problems. We'll talk about cybersecurity shortly, but it's very difficult if I'm a small operation to guarantee that my data in the cloud, my own systems, is secure. But by using the cloud, I've got a lot of faith in the people at Amazon, Google, Azure, etc., that they can make sure that my data is much better secured than I probably can. So this has become a hugely sought after, I guess, a skill in the job market today. So lots of companies, we've noticed, are really starting to invest in upskilling their current employees in cloud computing to meet this huge amount of demand that we have in that space. And another technical skill, one quite close to my heart because my background is in software development, is the need for people to be able to write software. Because as we do more things with data science, with cloud computing, etc., we need people who can make these systems. And generally, obviously, we need to be able to tell the computers how to do these things. Now, we have lots of what we call no-code solutions that are starting to appear, but still, the back of all these new modern systems are built by people who can do software development. So languages like Java, Python, JavaScript becoming massively important, I think, in our sector. And there's huge amounts of skills gaps in people who can actually deliver these things. I think as well, everyone's probably got a mobile phone and uses their mobile phone probably more each day than they let on. So huge amounts of app development on Android and iOS are really in demand by employers at the moment. And then finally, you might have heard of SaaS, or software as a service. So where we can basically offer software as a service. So we see lots of companies move into this model. If you think about, I don't know, a Gmail, I'd never download Gmail to my computer. It's a free license, but I let Google manage all the software and I just use it as a service. And I think we're seeing huge amounts of companies move into this model. I think Microsoft are doing it across pretty much all of their portfolio. Office 365 is online. I think their gaming systems, you can subscribe to, I think it's Xbox Live or something, and you can access all their games for a subscription fee rather than just buying products off the shelf that have a limited shelf life. So these tech skills are all massively important. There's huge amounts of scope for jobs. Really exciting, I think. Well, I like technology, so I say it's really exciting. But I think one thing we often forget about when we work with technical systems is the ability to have good soft skills as well. And one thing we're really noticing when we work with a lot of our industry partners is the increasing importance of having good soft skills. I think when I first learned how to program, lots of people didn't need to be able to speak to other people and work with others, showing my age a bit. But these days, all these sort of high-tech areas of work are team-based rather than individual-based. So soft skills allowing us to present things, to argue our cases, to collaborate, to communicate is really important in all these sort of organizations before. So I'd say effective communication is one of the critical skills needed in the tech industry. Projects often involve cross-functional teams. We need to share ideas, information, both clearly and concisely. We need to be able to collaborate. We need to work with various stakeholders who maybe have massively different skill sets to our own. So having these sort of abilities to work with other people and also problem solve is really important in the tech industry. In fact, I often think the tech industry is all about solving problems, and very often soft skills interweave with how we approach problems, how we strategize to solve the problem, how we eventually come up with the solutions. So this sort of critical thinking and creative solutions are becoming more and more highly sought after by lots of the tech companies that we work in partnership with. So finally, I think cybersecurity. I quite like cybersecurity. I think it's one of the exciting things these days. I think a lot of people picture it as someone sat behind a computer with their hoodie up, hacking away and then saying, I'm in, or something along those lines. But cybersecurity is becoming hugely important to every aspect, really, of the tech industry. More and more sensitive data being stored online. We need more people who can help protect that data. Cyber attacks come in many, many forms these days. You've probably heard of viruses, malware, phishing attacks, and data breaches. So we need professionals who can not only prevent attacks, but also respond quickly to attacks to stop them happening in the future. So we need people familiar with the latest tools, technologies. They need to be able to secure both our data, our systems, our networks. They need to have good visibility of new threats, because new threats appear all the time. I think that's one of the big buzzwords in cybersecurity. I think they call it threat intelligence, but trying to predict the next attack before it actually happens. So really important that we can stay up to date. I think we've seen throughout the last, 10 or so years that the consequences of cybersecurity breaches can be devastating. Lost data, lost revenue, reputational damage, I think, is a really big one. I think we've all heard about ransomware as well, and the sort of problems that creates, and obviously huge fines if my data does get stolen. So lots of reasons that we need these skilled cybersecurity professionals to help protect our systems. It's not just the professional cybersecurity. I think one important thing is that everyone needs to be cybersecurity aware. I think 97% of cybersecurity attacks at some point involved exploiting a human being rather than a computer system. So it's not just our systems that need to be secure. I think all our employees need to have basic cybersecurity awareness as well. And obviously, someone has to train those people and teach them how to be cyber aware. I think we've all got that one friend or relative who will happily click on any link that anyone sends them, make you pull your hair out probably as well. So I think the importance of cybersecurity in the tech industry cannot be overstated. With this increasing number of cyber threats, especially the recent war with Ukraine and Russia has caused a huge amount of extra cyber attacks taking place in the West. So companies need professionals who can help protect their data and systems from attack. And obviously, again, soft skills really useful in the cybersecurity industry. So I think one of the exciting things, I think a lot of people often feel quite frightened, is that the tech industry is constantly evolving, and it can be seen quite daunting to sort of keep up with the latest skills and trends. But I think it's critical to stay ahead of the curve and to be current and be able to do the best things. I mean, I often program using a language called C, which is a really old language. And if it wasn't for the fact that industry moved along, I would still be programming in C, which wouldn't be efficient at all. So we have all these new tools. We need to use them to really be able to be at the forefront of tech these days. So thanks for listening to me. I'm going to hand over now to Jennifer. If you want to introduce yourself, Jennifer, and take the mic.
Hello there. They're really interested to hear everyone's comments so far, and thank you for having me here today. My name is Jennifer Stirrup, and I'm excited by all things technology. I learned to code when I was 8 years old in a programming language called BASIC. So if you're feeling old, Sam, I certainly am. I don't know if anyone has heard of these languages, but I think the thing is that in the IT industry, you have to be prepared to keep up with change and learn new things. But actually, I really do believe that people join the IT industry because they like change, because they want to be challenged and learn new things, and they want to know the most up-to-date things. I think inside every IT professional, there's an inner geek. So even though I started years ago learning BASIC, I'm now running around doing AI systems. So I'm living proof that you can change, adapt and grow by keeping your skill set up to date. So that's just me individually. But what does this mean actually for you? Now, what we do know is that the World Economic Forum, for example, has put forward a job report. Now, their job report actually said that there's going to be 50, their report said, I'll get this right, 50% of all employees will need to reskill by 2025 as adoption of new technology increases. So that's the World Economic Forum. I'm not making that up. We can supply a link at the end. But what that means is we need to sit with that for a little moment and think, what does that mean? Well, the adoption of machine technology such as automation and machine learning means that people are probably thinking, am I going to be threatened by a machine? Now, the good news is that all of this technology change means that, according to the World Economic Forum, we'll have 100 million new jobs that will emerge. And all of these new jobs will require more interaction with things like machines and algorithms. So people's jobs are going to change. And if you want to be ahead of the curve, which most IT professionals really are, then having that skill set, keeping that up to date is really important. I don't know if you've ever read the book, The Seven, is something like 7 steps that successful people will do, 7 successful habits or something like that. I can dig it out at the end. But one of those successful habits is called sharpening the saw. And what that means is, instead of just sawing the whole time, sometimes you have to stop what you're doing, go and sharpen the saw, then come back again. And it's like that with our skill set as well. Sometimes you do have to take a pause, go and sharpen your skills, and come back again. And it really means that you're more effective than you were before. 7 habits of successful people. So I'll dig you the link for that. So where is all of this coming from, all this change? Well, we can see this across a variety of sectors, not just in IT, but in the public sector, businesses, and even governments. So one of the drivers for this is digital and technological transformation. So what we see there is we start to hear lots of buzzwords appearing, such as artificial intelligence, quantum computing, the Internet of Things, and robotics. Now, these seem like they are disparate strands, 4 different things. But actually together, they've been really pushing forward and gaining momentum for quite a while now. So, and we're actually looking at not just technology changes, but societal changes as well. We're really entering that 4th industrial revolution, which will change the way that we live, we work, and how we communicate. And what we're going to see is really amazing technological developments. So Sam has already mentioned ChatGPT. That's just one of the technology changes we can start to see. So with this said, because we are starting to think about this fourth industrial revolution, you're probably wondering what that means. Well, when we look at history, the first industrial revolution used water and steam power to automate and mechanize production. The second industrial revolution was electricity, electric power to start to create mass production. The third industrial revolution used electronics and information technology to automate production. So these things start to come together. The fourth industrial revolution is building on the third. So it's more than just electronics and information technology. It's really about a fusion of technologies, things starting to come together, and that really blurs the lines between biological, digital, and physical spheres. So we're starting to see that we are using more and more of the Internet of Things in order to gain more information about our environments. When you combine that with robotics and AI, suddenly it all becomes clear that we can do so many things with these technologies when we start to combine them. Now, the thing with the fourth industrial revolution is things are growing at such a pace. Now, it's not just the velocity and the scope that we see changes, but the impact as well on individuals. So it's all of these things, we may look at them as buzzwords, but I would really encourage you to start to become familiar with things like artificial intelligence, learn and all about data. Because what underpins these pillars of the Industrial Revolution are artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, robotics, autonomous self-driving vehicles, 3D printing is another one. Then we start to move into areas such as nanotechnology, biotechnology, and even moving towards quantum computing. But underpinning all of these things is the data, okay? Because if you don't have data, you're not going to have artificial intelligence. You're not going to be able to do robotics. You won't have any data to help instruct the robot what to do. Internet of Things is all about sensors providing data. But if you take that data away, IoT is nothing. And already these technologies are all around us, from self-driving cars to drones, for example, virtual assistants, chatbots, and software that can translate for us, software that can even make investment decisions for us. So there's a whole range of things happening. So we talk about these buzzwords, but the crucial point is that data skills underlie all of these. If you have data skills, then you can move into AI if you want to, and you can certainly move into other areas as well. Now, all of these technologies are also enabled by cybersecurity. Now, it's actually a really important area as well. It's actually crucial. For many organizations, like Sam just mentioned, the risk of a data breach is not just financial or reputational, it could be legal as well. And customers, I think, eventually will, companies eventually will be, their approach to cybersecurity will become very much tied up with their brand, okay? I don't know about you, but when I think about certain airlines, all I can think about is data breach, right? Because that's important to me. And I want people to be careful with my data. The thing with programming is many people are using open source. It appears everywhere, right? We can see it in Python, for example. So when we start to improve in open source security, we start to make our overall programming estate much more secure. Now, software supply chain infections are becoming increasingly costly, and they're also becoming increasingly prevalent. So, for example, the United States recently, in response to the SolarWinds breach in 2021, you may remember that from last year, President Biden actually responded to that by setting aside an additional $750 million in order to invest in cybersecurity. So when you hear people making investments like that, you're starting to think, right, there's a job market appearing in there because people are putting their money behind these technologies and they need the skills in order to do that. So SolarWinds, for example, used vulnerabilities in software created by SolarWinds. But the way it also worked was because SolarWinds was a trusted software solution, it was cheerily downloaded and accepted by organizations all around the world. So one thing you start to see is the same happening in open source, and we can actually see that happening a little bit at the moment. There's a few different types of attacks, such as dependency confusion and namespace confusions. And what that really does is it exploits the way that dependencies work in common source, open source languages, such as Python, Ruby, and JavaScript. We can also see things like typo squatting that uses common misspellings of package names to sneak that naughty software under the guise of an established product. Now, because we're using so much open source all the time, I think if you're a developer, it would be really useful to know some cybersecurity, to have those skills, to cross-skill as well as become more involved more deeply in your existing skill set. So, for example, you may have heard of the ThruTech, the Kali network, Kali spelled K-A-L-A-Y. And what happened there was it was a cloud-based communications platform used by an estimated 83 million IoT devices. It actually appeared on people's phones throughout Africa. Now, the thing is that it could actually, because of the breach, in the platform, that could then allow the remote control of these devices to include monitoring audio and video feeds as well. And because it was getting such open source, it was a notice for some while. Now, the technology itself is open source, and actually you can still go and download it from GitHub, it's still there. But the point being that we're starting to see the intersection of these skill sets. We're starting to see that programming, you have to start to learn a little bit about cybersecurity as well. And I'd also strongly recommend knowing about data too. Now, because we're starting to move into this fourth industrial revolution, where we see the convergence of technologies together, that's starting to bring in about new business models as well, and workplace transformation. Now, as we know, the global pandemic had a huge impact on how we work. And what that actually meant was because we're seeing the rise of new business models, we're starting to see a focus on things like diversity, inclusion, and equity, and also sustainability as well. People are looking at sustainability tech, green tech. So as these new online business models emerge after the pandemic, we're starting to see a move towards hybrid working. That opens up the availability of skills. So I think it's as companies become more aware of their sensitivities, their duty to the environment, you're going to start to see people's skills to perform on that to actually change as well. Now, and just a last point really about how do we bridge that skills gap. A report by McKinsey and Company in 2020 said that 87% of executives and HR managers say that they're currently facing a major skills gap. The skills gap is a mismatch between the available and required skills and talents within the organisation. If they don't have one now, they're expecting to face one in the very near future. So this is called the skills gap. And what it really means is employees don't always have the skills they need to do in order to do their jobs well in the future. Now, the study actually showed that skills used to be valid for around 5 years, but now many skills are becoming outdated after 2 years. So actually there is a bit of a rat race trying to keep up. But certain things will always be popular, data skills being one of them. So we see a need for people not just to understand how to build a machine learning algorithm or how to use one, but also around the ethics of using that as well. Say, for example, the organisation is showing a bias in how decisions are being made. What that tells us that the machine learning model has not been trained properly in terms of the data. So with that, it's not just about everyone becoming a machine learning programmer. So it's not that. It's also about interpreting those models, what the results are, what does it mean, how can they be improved, and like Sam's already mentioned, the communication piece is absolutely crucial. There's no point telling people that the P level is 0.05. That doesn't mean anything to many business people. What you want to do is take that data, interpret it, and become that data translator, where you understand what the machine learning algorithm or business intelligence reports are doing, what they're saying, but being able to make that easy and digestible for other people to understand. So this involves technology skills, but also things like critical thinking and analysis, problem solving, and also active learning strategies as well. How do you best learn? So I think it's actually really important to understand that the job market is being defined by skills as well as roles. And as the shift in the job market starts to increase and accelerate, it's great to see that demand skills are skyrocketing. I want to thank 8-year-old me for becoming a bit of a geek and learning on a very old computer all about how to learn data, because that skill, believe it or not, is still relevant now. The demand for data skills is skyrocketing and will continue to grow. There was a study by DataCamp who offer they have tutorials and things. So DataCamp did a study that showed that data skills are invading the rest of traditional roles, such as marketing and finance, leading to a whole range of hybrid roles where people's data skills are becoming crucial to what they do. For example, their study showed that marketing experts who know SQL earn 40% more in salary than marketing experts who don't have any SQL skills. So don't go thinking that you have to be a programmer, right? You have to sit with a hoodie on and type and hack away. That's the perception people have. And there's certainly people like that in the industry. But there's also people that look like us, right? People who look like me, who can sit and code away, pull data out, pull it together, do things with that data and really work magic. And it's not just about it ending there. It's about the impact that you can have with data. I did some work, some volunteer work with a charity, a women's charity, and it was basically being able to help them to pull the data together to go back to the police and ask for a donation for each referral that the police made to this particular charity. They were not able to do that before. So the data perspective was actually quite simple, but the impact was huge because the money that was raised by that women's charity meant that they could do things to improve the services and really ultimately help the women and the families that the charity was helping. So I've also done some work in data science, which was all about predicting who is most likely to become homeless. The idea is about catching people before they fall. Okay, so trying to work out who's most likely to become homeless and how can they be helped before they fall into that very unfortunate position. So actually having data skills is more than just sitting cracking out code, right? It's about interpreting the data and also thinking about the impact that you can have in your community, but also in your workplace as well. So, and as part of that, I want to say that these data skills are accessible to everybody. I have to confess, I didn't like maths at school, right? It bored me and I couldn't see the point. Geometry, trigonometry, what was happening? What was the purpose? But the real thing for me was about statistics, because I could use that as a tool in order to help other people. And that's where I think diversity inclusion really starts to come into its own, because you can use your skills to help other people to come to the table as well. So I think we're going to chat a little bit now about how the future is diverse and inclusive. I'm sorry I talked so long, but this is one of my most interesting topics. So with that, we'll have a think about the implications for professionals and organisations. So I'd like to pass over to Pawan, if that's okay.
Hi, I think
Yeah,
I was.
hi.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry, I was going to segue across, but thanks, Jennifer. That was a really insightful talk. Lots of really important trends and predictions, I think, for the future of tech skills, for the growing demand for data-related skills and machine learning expertise. And then we're going to go into the importance of diversity, inclusivity into tech. So some great insights there. But I'd like to hand over to Pawan, who's one of our technical trainers at TechTalent, with a wealth of experience and expertise to share. Over to you, Pawan.
Thank you. I feel really special because I've been introduced twice now. So thank you very much, both of you. Hi, everyone. My name's Pawan. I am, as I've been told, I'll introduce myself now. I'm a technical trainer here at TechTalent. And my background is a little bit different in that I don't come from a techie background. I come from an educational background. But regardless of kind of which sector I've worked at, my focus has been in working with diverse individuals to try and upskill them. And right now it's focused on upskilling them and developing their tech skills. So today in my little bit, I'm going to be providing some practical tips and strategies that organizations can use to stay ahead in the tech industries. And I'll kind of tackle that in a few different ways. So firstly, as the tech industry continues to evolve, we know that it's fast-paced. We know that it's moving really fast. It is essential for professionals to stay current on the latest tech skills in order to remain competitive. So you can no longer, as it has been well gone into, you can't rely on the skills that you already have. You have to keep learning and growing and developing to not just stay ahead of the curve, but just stay apace. So there are different ways that we can stay current on these latest tech skills. So the internet, amazing as it is, has a myriad of different training and educational resources online that are free to use and waiting to be used. So sites like LinkedIn, like Reddit, all of these are where professionals share their insights, their knowledge on a wide range of tech topics, or even things like GitHub, which are more technology focused. They're used for people to collaborate as well as really valuable resources. So it's really important to make use of what is already there. It's not if upskilling is a faraway goal and it's difficult. You've got all of these things that you need to put in place in order to reach it. It's something that can be put into place now in a short time frame. There are also other free course platforms that you can make use of as well. There are places and boot camps and tutorials and academies like TechTalent where we offer and they offer courses in a wide range of topics. So whether it's cybersecurity, if it's data analysis, cloud computing, software engineering as well, which is close to my heart as a software developer. So these boot camps, these workshops, these intensive learning programs, their entire MO is to help the professionals acquire new skills. So they're set up, they're ready, and they're ready to be taken advantage of. So there are loads of resources already available that I think professionals and organizations, so individuals and organizations, should take advantage of in order to build that strong foundation of knowledge in order to stay current on the latest trends and all of the best practices in the field as well. And the other strand of this that I want to talk about, and it's the importance of diversity and inclusion. It's something that's very close to my heart as well. It's important nowadays for organizations to attract and to retain this top tech talent by promoting diversity and inclusion. It's crucial nowadays. I don't think we can kind of oversell it enough that a workplace needs to prove and to demonstrate and show that it values and it respects all employees, whatever background they are from. And by doing this, the organizations are able to attract a wider range of candidates, promote a more positive and productive work environment, and also reduce turnover as well. Because as we move forward, we know that the priorities of our workforces have changed, and therefore the core values of our organizations need to change likewise as well. And it's also important because by incorporating diversity and inclusion at all levels as well, not just top down, not just at the bottom, but at all levels. Organizations are actually making full use of a large pool of potential that would otherwise go ignored. So a little bit of an anecdote. I love talking about myself, but I actually, when I was a teenager, learned how to code as well. I learned how to develop websites, and I did that by myself, by looking at source code, etc., etc. And I was told by my school, why don't you go into it? But it didn't seem to me, and this is, I'm talking about 15 years ago now, even then it didn't seem like it was an environment that was open for me. One, I was a woman. Two, I'm an Indian woman, and it didn't seem like there was any space for me there. So that means that I've come to this new industry much later on than I would have. But it also means if my story is being replicated throughout the community, which I guarantee it is, it means that organizations themselves are missing out on this, I've said it, large pool of potential of people who will be highly skilled, bring different perspectives to the table. So don't think of it as oh, this is a tick boxing exercise that we need to bring other people in who fill this gap or fill this role. It's actually, you are, by ensuring that diversity and inclusion are part of a company's core values, and that you're actively promoting these through initiatives like unconscious bias training, employee resource groups as well, diverse hiring practices. It means that you're actually bringing this tech talent, it's not tech talent us, but tech talent to the table. This also actually does mean, however, addressing diversity at a grassroots level as well, reaching out to those underrepresented groups who may not have realized or may not believe that the tech sector is open to them. I think that diverse groups, minority groups, however you want to call them, or whatever you'd like to call these groups as well, I think they're very used to fighting to make their own place at the table. But I think now the onus is also on organizations to make sure that they're reaching out, and they're not expecting people to have to fight twice as hard in order to be represented, that they're actually bringing these groups into the workplace as well, and making and taking advantage of their experience. So I think not just kind of looking at diversity and inclusion, but looking at the workforce as well. So you've got these wonderful people on board. How are you actually going to invest in them, and making sure that they are actually, learning and growing? And that's by investing in training and education as well. So by having that as well as part of your core value as of substantiating and supporting professional development, companies are able to foster that kind of continuous learning and development culture, which helps, as we know, it boosts employee engagement, boosts employee satisfaction and their retention as well, because they are going to want to stay in a place where they are able to grow, because people inherently want to grow, want to get better, want to achieve. So by prioritizing not just these tech skills as well, but these soft skills, these professional skills such as communication, collaboration, problem solving, you're able to maintain retention as well. Maintain retention, but retain diverse groups and retain your employees. So I think that's one of these things that I like working for TechTalent for, is because we understand the importance of staying on top of the latest tech skills, but also fostering this culture of continuous learning and development, and also reaching out to diverse groups as well. And we have that kind of range of resources and training programs that are there to help professionals acquire new skills, from people, for people like me who come from I was an English teacher coming from an English background, to acquiring these new skills to expand the networks that that they are exposed to, and to advance their careers as well. So I'm think that's it from me. I'm going to hand things back over to Sam now, and he's going to discuss some strategies on how individuals and businesses can stay instead from a more kind of business standpoint. Thank you.
Yeah, Thank you, Pawan, and thank you, Jennifer, as well, for the invaluable input. And also thanks to everyone who is still with us. So, as Pawan said, we'll talk about a few strategies. As we don't have much time left, I think we'll just focus on two of the main aspects from today. Obviously, keeping up to date with skills is important, but I think diversity and inclusion is really important, as Pawan just talked about. I used to work on the cybersecurity degree apprenticeship, which was part of the funnel to get people into our intelligence community in the UK. And one of the ways that they stay ahead of lots of other countries is with diversity, inclusivity of thought. Lots of different people from different backgrounds have different ways to approach and solve problems. And actually, that's really powerful, because if you have everyone from the sort of same background, the same way of thinking, you're going to lose that diversity of thought, and you're not necessarily going to come up with the best solution. You'll probably come up with the most popular solution, but probably not the best solution. So it's not just about ticking boxes. It's actually about how can we work well together and be a much better whole than the separate parts. So I think inclusive hiring practices are really important. I think one of the problems we have is, as Pawan mentioned, a lot of people see that tech is not for them. But we've got a huge skill shortage, and we've got a huge diverse workforce. And I think we really need to connect those two things together and get much more diverse inclusivity in tech between all our different groups that we have in the country, especially our underrepresented groups in technology. The other thing is artificial intelligence. I think it's a very much a buzzword. Everyone loves to see artificial intelligence. I think we've all seen movies like Terminator and so forth that talk about artificial intelligence, but it is the future. Whether you just want to call it machine learning or whether you want to call it artificial intelligence, it's here to stay. And it's going to, as Jennifer really alluded to, it's fusing all the different tech skills together. So the data is going to underpin everything that's going to connect together. And that's why we're in this fourth industrial revolution. I think there's a bit of a talk as well about ethical AI you can see on the slides. And I don't know whether that goes back to Terminator or not, but obviously lots of issues like privacy, security, and so forth are going to be really important with AI as well, because the data underpins all this stuff. So how much data should be transparent and how much is reasonable or responsible to give to AIs as well. And also when, a company who does AI, maybe if they're struggling, are they going to sort of break the rules on AI, the ethics of AI going forward? I think it's something that is going to be a lot more common. I think we'll probably see things in the news going forward about a lot more talk about ethical AI and how companies actually treat this data and process this data. I think we've all clicked on those captures. Can you see which one of these boxes are a traffic light? I think we've all seen them. I always get really paranoid when a tiny corner is in one square and I don't know whether to count it or not. But we're helping to train self-driving cars to spot traffic lights by clicking those boxes, which I think is fair enough. But as we start giving over more and more of our data to AI, I think there's going to be a lot more of ethical grey area that hasn't really been considered properly yet. I think as well, obviously we're from TechTalent. We can help both individuals and organizations in implementing strategies and staying ahead of the game. Obviously, we offer training, educational resources on diversity inclusion, courses and workshops on AI and machine learning. We've got trainers that can provide guidance on latest industry trends, best practices, help both professionals and organizations identify which skills are currently most valuable in the job market. If you are interested in learning more about TechTalent, you can stay in touch, stay ahead in the tech industry, implement these strategy. Feel free to reach out. I think a contact address will appear on the slide. I think contact@techtalent.academy. I'm more than happy to discuss personal development, career paths, where you can find resources, free training, and other career development opportunities. So thank you for everyone who turned up today for our webinar on the future of tech skills. Big thank you to Jennifer for coming in as our guest speaker. We hope you found all these insights and predictions really useful and thought-provoking. Now we have taken some questions offline that have been submitted before the webinar started. So we'll maybe just quickly go through some of those questions while we've got a bit of time left before we finished. Just to mention that at TechTalent, we are committed to helping both individuals and organizations stay ahead of the curve. So please do reach out to us if you have any further questions or interested in learning more about how we can help you or your organization. So my first question, maybe I'll put it out to the panel. Maybe we'll start with a nice, easy one. How do I make my CV look better for tech jobs if I don't have much experience?
So I don't. Oh, Jennifer, if you want to go first.
Sorry. One sort of suggestion I have is that if people don't have much experience and they don't feel confident, first of all, you're probably better than you think you are. A lot of people, I think, especially if they come from diverse backgrounds, sometimes feel they're not deserving of a place at the table because they don't know this, I haven't passed that exam or something like that. But you absolutely are. You bring so much every time. I think people sometimes undervalue themselves, and it's always obviously great to keep training. And one way I've sort of been a female technology, I've always tried to make sure I passed courses and got certifications to prove to myself more than anyone else that I had that seat at the table. Sometimes you can work for charities just in your spare time to try and gain some experience and bulk up the CV. Pawan, I don't know what you think.
Yes, thank you. So I've kind of got two things to say here. So the first one is to highlight your transferable skills, because your professional skills, whichever background you're coming from, they're going to be valuable. So if you used to manage in your past life, if you've managed high workloads, if you've got an artistic background, anything like that, highlight that, because these are all really good skills that will help you move forward in the tech industry as well. I think as well, then, if you're saying about how do I make it look better for tech jobs, is to also boost yourself by putting the work in and learning the fundamentals as well, to show that you have an interest in what it is that you're going for. So whether that is going to a boot camp or training or using those online resources that I mentioned earlier, having them on your CV will help make you a bit more marketable as well. Just to repeat what I said kind of earlier, that there are organizations out there like TechTalent that have been set up in order to bridge that skills gap. So have a little research, have a little think about what organizations are out there that can work for you to help make you more marketable as well.
Yeah. And one thing I would add as well, one of the great things about tech is you can actually do tech in your spare time. For example, you could do programming courses, and then you can show off what you've learned in those programming courses, maybe on a link to GitHub or something like that you could put on your CV. Here's an example of my work. I had a friend who wanted to become a games programmer, so he wrote his own version of Tetris, and that's what got him his first job in the games industry. And he's had a really successful career. I don't know if anyone's heard of Evil Genius 2. He was the lead developer on that. So it's just about, that passion. These days, I think qualifications has taken second fiddle to people with a passion and a drive to actually learn and do tech, which is, as we've said, it moves so fast these days. That drive and passion is something that employers are increasingly looking for. Is there a way AI can be used in customer service for 24/7 contact with customers? I think that's something we've probably all experienced. Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. I think that you can have chatbots, and the thing is with the chatbots is they're becoming so much more clever. I used to, gosh, back in the day in the 90s and early 2000s, we used to call them agents. They used to answer email automatically. So it was a bit like a chatbot, but it went to an email address and it would do some natural language processing and send back a response to the customer. So automating. And then it started to appear on the websites. Then it disappeared for about, I don't know, 15 years. Now it's came back again. So it's funny because the skills that I developed then have become popular again now. So the point being that when you invest in your skill set, you never lose that. You might not be using it right now, but you might be using it at some point in the future, and future you is going to thank current you for having learned that. So any investment you make in yourself is always, always worthwhile. So yes, we definitely can use them for customer service. And it's not just the chatbot itself, it's also about the data from the chatbot. What data is being transmitted? How can you analyse that to perhaps optimise the chatbot or identify how successful it's being, whether you need to retrain the algorithm sitting behind it? So it's a very exciting topic, actually. I went for another webinar.
Yeah, thank you. I think this sort of follows on almost with the creation of products such as ChatGPT. And if you've not seen ChatGPT, I definitely have a look. I think there's part of it called Playground, which also writes code. I like to play around with that. But with the creation of products such as these, how can young companies stay competitive in the market? I think that's a really good question.
Yeah, and I can take that one. I think ChatGPT is very good for translating and rewriting and giving and fact finding. So it gives you something digestible. I gave it a title of one of my own blog topics to see what it would do, and it rewrote my blog post and gave me it back. The structure was the exact same. I couldn't believe it. So it obviously just gone off and Googled or Bing searched my and came back with the same thing and answered it, rewording what I'd written. I wasn't sure how I felt about that, to be honest. I thought, well, it must be right if ChatGPT said it's done that. But where ChatGPT and other technologies can't do is give you an opinion. So I don't know if my blog post is right or not. I know that it's been returned by ChatGPT in some sort of reworded format, but I don't know if my opinions were right or not. And I think that's where the real human skill comes in, because our brains are our brains are designed to have ideas, but not to hold them. Humans, we don't always have very good memories. We probably shoot off lots of ideas every day that are great, but you lose them because you don't write them down. And I'm starting to get better at that. So I think that's the unique human skill that we will need to stay competitive, is to dial up our human skills. Coming back to what you said earlier, Sam, about communication, creative thinking, all these great transferable skills that Pawan has mentioned as well.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a great segue into my next question. What would you say is the most important soft skill needed when working in tech?
Oh, I can take this one. So I think the most important soft skill / professional skill, you can see me, I'm always saying professional skill instead. It's a growth mindset, I think, or another way to put it is resilience, because I think there is so much knowledge out there and it's constantly being added to and developed that it's very easy to feel lost in a sea of how fast things are moving and how much you don't know. And it's important to be resilient and take everything as a learning experience, that you are not trying to get to an end point, but you are on a journey and you are developing as you go on. And I think, again, that's one of the differences between like an AI and a human, is that you are always developing and getting better. And if you are growing and you are taking every kind of obstacle or setback or anything that you get really frustrated with because you don't know it, you're not giving up, and that you're continuing and you're coming back in another day. And I think that growth mindset, that resilience, is really important in every industry, but definitely in tech.
Yeah, thanks, Poan. I think we've only got time for one question left. We are getting a bit short of time, so I've cherry picked, I think, the question most applicable to everything we've talked about today. How do you think that the tech job market will be affected by advancements in AI? I think that's a really good question.
Yeah, I think we're going to see that AI, I think, will disappear into the background in some ways. It will start to automate so much that you start not to notice it. So Arthur C. Clarke, a famous science fiction author, wrote that any technology could be sufficiently seen as magic, because it just happens and we don't notice it. And I think that's one of the great things with technology. You'll see there will be big changes, but we won't necessarily see them. So for example, you probably whip out your phone all the time to use Google Maps, as I do, because I have a terrible sense of direction. And before you know it, you've become reliant on it. You haven't thought about it. Before you know it, you lose your map reading skills. I don't even buy the AA map every year. I used to diligently buy the AA map every January. So I had an up-to-date road map in my car. So if I was driving anywhere, it was there. Don't do that now. I don't know if they even still sell those in garages. But I think, yes, huge changes. Things like communication, people use ChatGPT to generate content, but then they'll use their human skills to decide if it's any good.
Yeah, thank you. So we've just ticked on to the hour mark. So thank you everyone for joining us today. If you have any further questions or interest in learning more about how we can help you or your organisation, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. I think there's an email address, contact@techtalent.co.uk on the slide there. But thank you again for joining us today. We look forward to continue the conversation with everyone else. And thank you, Jennifer, for coming in as our guest speaker. And thanks finally to all our audience who came in to listen to us talk. Have a great day, everyone. Best regards.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Okay, bye.